Very much.
Not at all. We've got Christopher Biggins and Dawn Neeson to talk about some of the stories making the headlines today. And Biggins and Dawn, the first thing I want to talk about is lollipop people being scrapped. And there's this cost-saving term going around. They cost £1 million a year, and which is really nothing in terms of a council's budget. But what do you think about lolly people going? And Biggins, would it be something that you would ever be tempted to do?
Well, funnily enough, you should say that. No.
No. Yeah.
I think the abuse they get...
Do they?
I think they get a lot of abuse from motorists who, you know, are stopped when they're in a rush to get somewhere and they suddenly walk out. I think some of them are very arrogant too. I think they take it too seriously. They think that they are...
A little bit of power.
Absolutely. that lollipop gives them a lot of power. And I think they... Sometimes you can see them if you're stopped just before.
Yes.
And you can see... And the children, I feel the children don't like them either.
Oh, gosh.
I think there's a lot of aggravation there.
Goodness.
If you're a lollipop lady or man this morning, get in touch and defend yourselves against such slurs.
What do you think, Dawn? Would you do it? I'm saying that I don't think it should be a paid council position. It should be voluntary and should be organised by the schools. And I think there'd be a lot of people in a neighbourhood who would say, I'll go and do half an hour there.
I think, whether it should be paid or not, I'm not sure, but I think it can be an incredibly hard job. It's very nice at this time of year when you've got nice, light, warm days coming up, but imagine standing there in all weathers doing that. So maybe they do deserve paying, to be honest with you.
But you get out and about and you mix with people and, you know...
Yeah, but most of them are hurling abuse at you, Eamonn.
Well, give them phasers or stun guns or something then to electrocute anybody that does do that. Right, thank you very much for that. What about this charity situation, Dawn? 14 billion given by people in the United Kingdom despite a cost of living crisis.
Well, I think, you know, the cost of living crisis, it's become a phrase now we use in every single area, isn't it? It really is. It's like the cost of living crisis. And if you go to many places, you're not getting that feeling a lot of the time from...
What feeling?
The people really are in a cost of living crisis. There is...
They are!
Well, there is and there isn't. And I think this cost of living crisis now is covering a multitude of sins. And the fact that so many people are giving to charity, I think it demonstrates that even in a cost of living crisis, and I'm very aware of that phrase, people are still very generous and still very willing to give to causes that are close to their heart. But I think both political parties now are using this cost of living crisis to get away with so many things. Yes, people are struggling. Yes, times are hard. But I think if you go to many places like shops and restaurants, and lots of places are really, really busy still. So I'm very wary about how we trot out this phrase now.
No, I don't agree with you at all. I think everybody hurts with this. And I think if you've got kids, you would think 3 of us going to the cinema, whatever. No way, Jose. What do you think?
People are still doing it, Eamonn.
They're not doing it to the same degree. I mean, and you just ask anybody who works in an entertainment or catering industry, and it's like through the floor.
It's suffering. But I think, interesting, this 14... Is it million or billion?
Billion.
14 billion is probably due to the fact that a lot of people are going into competitions to earn, like the lottery, to earn a lot of money. So I think that's the other interesting thing. They are they are paying into charities, but hoping to get back a huge amount of money.
Really? So you think a lot of this is only through people entering a ballot?
I honestly think...
Finding the slant on the good stories this morning, aren't you, Biggins?
But I think it's true, though. I think it's, you know...
No, I think people have seen the horrors unfolding in the Middle East, in Russia, in Ukraine, and people are moved. And I think British people are just incredibly generous.
Well,
they are generous.
You switch on the television now, and there's a whole new spate of charity adverts giving houses away, postcode
absolutely.
All sorts of things. I mean, Davina McCall's now advertising one as well.
Yeah.
They're popping up everywhere.
Exactly. Even this company's giving 12,000 away.
But I'm pretty sure that's not for charity. I think we...
So there's money in misery, you're saying?
I think so.
I think think crossing the two stories over here with the royal story and the whole cancer thing. I mean, I did yet another marathon bike ride for prostate cancer over the weekend. So I'm sort of like trying to do that. And I think the fact that we're now talking about things like cancer so much is encouraging more people to give, certainly to medical charities, to help raise funds for that.
For sure.
I'm once again, Red Nose Day this year was fantastic, the amount of money they raised.
Yeah.
Well, except everybody, all the parents I know were saying they couldn't get their hands on a red nose anywhere, and pretty much all of the schools failed to market. Oh. And there was a bit of a sort of backlash, all the parents saying, why aren't they doing this? So the schools don't seem to be behind it in the same way the Red Nose celebrations. I remember Comic Relief being a huge deal.
Oh, you couldn't move for Red Nose for everything, weren't they?
So I don't know what's happened there.
And let's talk about pubs and closing times. Christopher, this is front page of the Mirror today, and basically they say that a lot of pubs are closing just at 8 o'clock. They don't sell food, or they shut altogether on quietest days to save on staff and energy costs.
Well, I think this stemmed from Brexit, because I think, you know, so many people left the country who were workers and used to work in the pubs. And I think, you know, nowadays, it's like, for instance, just heating the place. So, I mean, people go along there, I think, not only for a pint or a gin and tonic, but also to get warm. And I think it's costing these pubs a huge amount of money. The rates are bad. So to make the profit nowadays is not as easy as it used to be. When people used to go to the pub to have a good evening out, you know. I think now they're doing it at home. They're going and they're buying their bottles of beers and drinking it at home.
Well, that's the thing. It's very cheap to go to a supermarket and buy bottles of beer rather than go into a pub where you're going to pay 4, 5, 6 times as much.
I mean, I think, what is a pint of beer? Did I read somewhere this morning? It's £4.85 or something.
It depends where you buy it. I mean, if you're buying it in, you know, West Ham, it's £6.
Yeah.
£6?
Yeah.
I remember when I was 16 and working in a bar, there was uproar that the price of a pint rose from 35p to 50p.
Wow,
Absolute uproar about it. Dawn, this awful situation in Moscow and this terrorist attack on Friday night, 137 people dead.
And absolutely. And this is in all the papers today, front of the Guardian. I've got pictures, quite harrowing pictures, of the actual suspects who have quite clearly been tortured by the police forces in Russia. And there's an awful story about how one of them had his ear cut off and was shoved in his mouth. But it's 2 suspects have appeared in court. But the interesting thing about this story is, even though ISIS-K have claimed responsibility for this attack, which must have been terrifying, you watch the footage and it's just awful. These poor people at this concert again. But even though ISIS-K have claimed responsibility, Putin is refusing to accept it. I mean, in the speech he gave, he didn't name the Islamist terror group once during his public statements on the attack. And the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman has said, well, you know, the Americans are saying it's ISIS, but what do they know? They can't even solve who killed President Kennedy. Well,
See, I know this concert hall so well. This is the Crocus City Concert Hall. And I filmed in Moscow, and I spent 2 days, a day filming there and a day watching a performance as well. And the amazing shopping mall around the whole place. And it's really sobering to think that in this wonderful scenario, which we would all feel very much at ease and at home with, burnt to the ground now and 137 people murdered.
Absolutely terrifying. And, you know, you think, I'm sure some people think, well, the Russians deserve that, but no one deserves that, though. I mean, Putin deserves that, but not his people.
Yeah.
And they were children.
Children there.
You know, and how they can do this. But then this is what's happening all over the world now. There's no thinking at all from these terrorists as to who they're hitting, who the individuals are. Children. I mean, what's happened in Israel?
What's the benefit of that?
Exactly.
Also, seeing these mugshots of the perpetrators in the front, I mean, a lot of people will have very little sympathy for them.
Of course.
And, you know, yes, they're being tortured, but people might not care. But I suppose, for me, it underlines why it is so important to have a strong judicial system, because you give Putin 2 weeks and he'll have forced these people through torture to sign a confession saying Ukraine was responsible, this was Zelensky, and use that as a reason to enhance his arguments.
That's the reason, Isabel, and that's why you look at those pictures, and they are suspects, OK? And this is Russia.
Justice, because otherwise
you have to. But, you know, watching the footage of the actual attacks, you just have an instant flashback to what happened in Manchester.
Yeah,
absolutely chilling. I mean, children should be enjoying themselves at a concert, running for their lives in terror.
Not good.
Not good. Not good indeed. Well, listen, lots of you have been getting in touch this morning on a range of topics. Keep those thoughts coming in. Lollipops has got you all talking. Councils are wrong to remove these people who keep our children safe. The government and councils remove funds for community activities like libraries and village halls, but can send millions to other countries like India. This is from Brian. Something's wrong here.
Just want to say to you all, at 8:20 this morning, we're going to be talking about vet bills. And this is a very interesting story. Dan Brocklebank, an actor in Coronation Street, basically had trouble with his dog, and he was given tablets which were costing £26.90. His overall bill was £2,000, and he found out that the tablets were available at the local pharmacy for 38p each, right? So how much are you being ripped off? How much would you pay for your animal? And we'll be talking about that 8:20. Here's the weather.